You ready, Sherry?
I am ready.
Okay. Welcome to the November 18th City Commission meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start by having Sherry read the rules of the meeting.
Good evening, everyone. If you would please silence your cell phones. The primary format for accessing the meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access cannot be guaranteed due to potential technology issues. When the mayor calls for public comment, please approach the podium. When the vice mayor calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function. When prompted, select Join as Panelist. There will be a brief delay as your role changes. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn on your camera to provide your comments. Please state your name and zip code before providing your comments, and all comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Item A on the agenda is to approve the agenda. The City Commission reserves the right to amend, supplement, or reorder the agenda during the meeting. Do we have a motion on the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lawson, second by Commissioner Littlejohn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Amber's not on yet, right? Okay. Excellent. The agenda is approved. Item B is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and approved by one motion. Members of the governing body may remove items for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public may remove items identified as quasi-judicial for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes for comments. Is there any item the commission would like to remove from the consent agenda? I would like to pull B6A. Any others? B6A relates to the bonds.
Yeah, that was one. Yep.
Okay. There is one quasi-judicial item, B8A. Does any member of the public like to pull B8A? Any online?
None online.
Seeing none, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Let's see. A move to approve the consent agenda with the following exception, B6A.
I second.
There was a motion by Commissioner Lawson, a second by Commissioner Littlejohn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. B6A was pulled. It's the resolution for bond authorization, and we got several emails about that, and I responded to a few of those. This is, and Rochelle can speak, this is a similar resolution that we've had at least the 5 years I've been on the commission that attaches the CIP, and I know there was a question about, some people had a question about paragraph 3. I did look back, and that's the same paragraph 3 we've had as long as I've been on the commission, but Rochelle, you have anything you want to add about that before we open it to public comment?
Yes, you are correct. This is an annual process we complete as part of the bond issuance. This is step 1 of 3 as part of issuing debt for our projects. So this functions most like a notice of intent to issue bonds, and so that we can comply with all state statutes and notice periods, excuse me, ahead of our spring sale. So this does not bind us to any future decision. What it really does is set a maximum. And so we can do all, some, or none of these items in any combination.
And what it attaches is everything approved in the CIP.
Correct, yes.
And, for example, last year's included $12 million for City Hall and X million for Fire Station 6, even though that was in last year's
Correct.
authorizing. We didn't actually spend that money, and they show up again.
Correct. And another good example is the Gateway project, which involves TIF general obligation bonds, which were already authorized in another resolution, but in an attempt to correlate all the projects in one place as a reference for transcript review and other official bond proceeds, we relist them.
Excellent. Other questions? Thank you, Rochelle. Stick around in case there's any other questions from the public. Now we pull it off consent. This is a public agenda item. Anyone like to speak on this? John?
John Ems, 66049. I appreciate the email exchange. There might have been some confusion on my part. However, every time debt pops up, I like to get forward and speak to it. Whether or not it's going to turn into something real, it deserves some kind of statement from the public. And in my view, the commission keeps growing the city's debt. Earlier this year, the federal administration began reducing grants. It became critical for the commissioners to prioritize projects and reduce debt. Instead, what's been happening is we've enabled an ever-increasing debt for projects that should have been deferred or canceled. And I realize it's popped up before, but you know, the $12.5 million city reconfiguration is one of those items in my mind that should have just been canceled and should go away. Meanwhile, the fire department funding has been cut, which seems like a lack of prioritization. I think election results show the public reaction to these kinds of decisions, and we ought to be more sensitive to what we decide to keep and what we decide to move forward. The city's requesting, as I understand it, 7639 authorization for 2026 debt. At this last meeting, this is the last meeting before the new commission is seated. And I understand the issue about whether it's going to be, quote, real or not, but it's sitting there in this paperwork, and the new commission is coming on December 2nd, and it certainly deserves to be seriously considered by the new commissioners. To have such a major funding discussion or possibility, paperwork being moved forward when maybe it should go away, doesn't seem to be appropriately respecting the election results. It's just a bad look, and we really should be honoring the authority of the new commission as well as the voting public. Additionally, tonight's resolution gives several administrative individuals the authority to spend these funds, while earlier debt resolutions to me appeared only to authorize administrative individuals to sell the bonds. That's a bit of a change of roles, and I question whether that also is somewhat usurping the authority, the new authority of the new commissioners. So granting this additional authority seems to be a significant departure from past practices. And again, like I say, it seems like the current commission is attempting to usurp or bypass the opportunity of the new commissioners and the decisions that the voting public made. So, in my view, at a minimum, this item should be deferred. Maybe it was not going to happen anyway, but it certainly should not even be in our discussion until the new commission comes on in December. Thank you.
Other public comment on B6A? Mr. Martin?
Good evening, John Martin, 66046. I would agree with the previous presenter and ask that this item be deferred and or canceled. All that spending $12.5 million on a new city hall or a city hall renovation when we just spent $130 million, all of which is debt on an MSO campus out east of town that the public is already frankly pissed about. Just isn't a good look. On top of that, some of the verbiage in the resolution, you know, another $13 million for street maintenance versus a capital expenditure for improving it, just maintenance, and going with geo bonds there isn't a good look. It makes us look like we're cash poor and aren't managing our money well. If we're going to spend $13 million, it better be for improvements, debt-wise, and not $13 million in cash for repairs. So, some of the comments I made to the commissioners earlier in the email was that the community, you know, spoke pretty loudly in this last election how unhappy they were with the commissioners' actions per se. I don't doubt that a lot of the spending needs to occur, but I think the effort is severely lacking in expanding on why some of these spends need to occur, why we're taking on so much debt, why now, especially with Kansas itself in a recession. Why are we $220+ million in debt and climb? I would also caution that I think, you know, and again, I stated this in my email, I think taking some of these actions on a consent agenda does not lend well to your credibility with the public, and in fact will call your ethics into question. Whether or not that should be the case, I don't doubt you're ethical folks, but it does tend to irritate some folks. So I would again ask that you at least punt these down the road, let the new commissioners come in and take a look at it. If the validation is there, let the community see it, overexpose it, and we can move forward from there. So thank you all.
Go ahead.
Brother Logan, how y'all doing this evening? Me being raised in Lawrence, I believe that Lawrence is a progressive type of, let's keep it moving, you know what I mean? I read on the resolution, which I'm voting on. I understand that it's general obligation, you're getting the funds from this, or that, but it's progressive. It's moving something forward, you know what I mean? I don't believe that we should have to wait till the next councilman and so forth, because this is on the agenda today. Then this is your job today. You know what I mean? So it's like, why should we have to wait along another couple months or so forth to get something done when we're here today talking about the same thing? That I just want to know what's the benefit and how long it's going to take, because I see all the construction going on. So I'm thinking, Lawrence is booming. You know, I see all the construction going on, but how long does it go on? You know what I mean? Because I see, I don't know. Maybe we need to get it hired, and let's motivate people to get hired. Or I don't understand, because it's taking so long to do projects. You know what I mean? But I like how it's still progressive. You know what I mean? Everybody loving everybody. Everybody's being acceptable to everybody. But I don't think you should have to wait to. Because then we have to go all from the beginning again and let them understand what the project is. This is your job. This is today. Thank you.
Merrill Sake, 66049. I'd like to request that resolutions that involve the authorizing, and I wasn't really clear on what, I guess I didn't see clearly what Rochelle was talking about, it not being real or not real. But resolutions that authorize allegedly $30 million of spending or debt be not on a consent agenda, but on a regular agenda for the public to discuss. Let's see here. Yeah, and when I think about like the amount of debt how the debt's like doubling in the last 3 years, I think about how I'm paying about 11% increase in utilities and taxes and fees, and to pay for this doubling amount of debt. And this, I feel like, is a good example of a large amount of money that needs to be on a regular agenda item for taxpayers and utility payers to be more aware of. I'd like to request that like the monetary amount be listed in the title of the resolution. It's not listed here. And in the actual item report on the agenda, on the fiscal impact section, that it could be listed there. It's not listed in any of those two things. That'd be a lot more helpful for someone like me to get an idea of what's happening instead of having to go through the last of the pages of the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers. I kind of agree. I think this would be a better item for the regular agenda than the consent agenda. Also, I would just like to point out tonight that if it's just you three voting, that you could pass this through with 2 people that are going to be leaving in a week. So, I mean, and what if the only 2 people that support this are the ones that are leaving? So I think this should be also a question for the FINC is, or if these 2 vote for it and you vote against it, are you going to be willing to defend it, I guess, voting it this way with your fellow new commissioners? Like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure the 2 new ones kind of ran on being more money, like being better spending with our money. So if they did run about spending our money better, I think this would be something that would be fair to let the new commission do because they won the election. Thank you.
Hello, David Baston, 66047. I agree with what's been said here. I mean, there's, if you don't have anything to hide, which obviously you probably don't, so it would be wise to just postpone it for, 2 meetings, so thank you.
Any other comments in the room on B6A? Any online, Sherry?
We do have one. Jack Krebs.
Holly Krebs.
Holly Krebs.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, go ahead, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Commissioner Finkeldye for removing this item from the consent agenda so we could discuss this. The consent agenda is for routine and procedural issues that are non-controversial, and our coalition believes that the authorization of $30 million of GO debt for CIP projects is not routine and procedural. In the future, we request that these major financial decisions be placed on the Commission's regular agenda for public discussion, and we greatly appreciate the increased transparency that this discussion provides. In spite of studying the city's budget and debt documents closely, the difference between this resolution and the other resolutions and ordinances authorizing debt is not apparently clear. The title of this resolution states that it authorizes the issuance of general obligation bonds and/or temporary notes. But Commissioner Finkeldye informed me that this resolution is procedural and that it does not authorize purchases. But the resolution says that it allows the city to use future bond revenue to reimburse the city for funds spent on these projects, and it gives the mayor, city manager, and others authorization to expend funds, which implies that this does authorize purchases. Additional clarity on these matters now and in the future would be greatly appreciated, especially understanding how these 3 different resolutions and ordinances that get passed now and in the spring relate to the debt issuance and purchases. For the future, we'd also like to recommend that resolutions and ordinances authorizing debt clearly include the monetary amount authorized directly on the agenda and within the fiscal impact section of the agenda item reports. This item did not include those, so the community was only able to learn of the fiscal impact of this item by analyzing the last 3 pages of a 7-page agenda item report and adding the numbers from 6 or 7 different items. I appreciate that this discussion allows the community to better understand the debt process and the commitments the city makes with each one of their votes. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Any other, Sherry?
That's it.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Appreciate the conversation. I guess I'll start by saying, I do believe it's a procedural vote. We passed the CIP, and the next step in the CIP, Gilmore and Bell prepares this to set out everything in the CIP to allow that can be considered in the next step. It doesn't authorize the actual issuance of any debt. Each of those expenses will be voted on individually, if ever. Again, mentioned earlier, last year the CIP had $12 million in for City Hall. The resolution passed on November 5th. Last year it happened in November, on November 5th of last year. On November 5th of 2024, passed it, included, for example, the City Hall. That debt was never issued. We never voted on it, never came back again, but it was on the CIP. It is a notice of intent, and so I do think it's procedural. Certainly the new commissioners, if we ever actually go to issuing these debts for any of these projects, those will all be multiple votes on each of those resolutions, authorization, finalize. So we'll have multiple votes on all of those if they ever come to fruition. And so happy to pull it off the agenda, happy to have that discussion, happy to explain that. I did go back and look to make sure I was correct, that, every year I've been on the commission, this exact resolution has come up. That language in paragraph 3 has been exactly the same every year that I've been on the commission, and it's authorized the CIP each time. Understand people want to talk about it, happy to do that. Happy, in the future not to have these on consent if people want to talk about it. But, every project that we decide to, eventually bond, will have, in my estimation, 6 or 7 votes. We'll have the original CIP, a vote on the CIP. We'll have the budget, then we'll have an adoption of the CIP. We'll have a second vote on the CIP. We'll have this intent, and then we'll have at least 3 votes to actually issue the bonds. So there'll be, anytime you issue a bond on something, you'll have 6 to 8 votes saying yes, and any one of those times, people could say no. I understand if people want to talk about those each of the 8 times, fine. But to me, a lot of those votes are procedural in between once the decision is made. But happy to keep that going forward with the new commission. I've talked to the new commissioners. We'll probably have more of these on there. Fine by me. But I do think we want to move this forward and allow the process to move forward. Other comments?
I believe Commissioner Sellers.
Oh, Commissioner Sellers is on? Oh, great. Go ahead, Commissioner Sellers.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Finkeldye. I do apologize for jumping on late. A little bit of an hour difference where I'm at. And I do appreciate you providing the context in regards to the consent agenda item. I think a couple of things that came to mind in reading some of the constituent emails and hearing from staff. I appreciate you bringing up the point of the procedural piece of this process of said resolutions. I think what this presents, or what I hope it presents as an opportunity, as what I hope maybe Ms. Krebs was alluding to, as her coalition speaks to wanting to have clarity and understanding that this is just, to your point, an educational moment to help individuals understand the process of how things go from the budget to that are appropriated or noted to be under general obligation bond, and what that process looks like. So I think that is an educational tool, that is something that the body is interested in sharing and providing to the people. I think that is something for us to definitely discuss as it relates to that process and how we go through the decision making. Because oftentimes the things that we do are not public facing, and that has to do with transparency. It's just that's the authority that we have as elected officials. So I do appreciate that being brought up. Second, to the point of, I think, kind of some of the technicality language of memos, I don't necessarily think that the amount needs to be put in the summary of whenever something is on, whether this is on consent or regular agenda item. It is in the body of the memo, in the packet. Maybe announcing it in the fiscal impact is something to be said. That would follow a traditional pattern of what we see in the state legislature as we talk about the fiscal impact or fiscal note. So I think, again, these are all things that we can discuss as far as the formality. I don't necessarily think it needs to be in the recommendation language or the language on the agenda. That gets too prescriptive, and it's not the point of the agenda title to be prescriptive. That information is in the memo that we all open up and we read what we're supposed to read and inform ourselves prior to our meeting. So I do appreciate the community bringing those things up. I think this is a continuing process of us recognizing the gaps on information that we have as given by our authority as commissioners, and what are things that we can do to help inform and educate better the community on the different processes that we go through, from budget to obligation to vote. So just wanted to make that note. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Any other comments or motion?
I think that's there's pretty much been said. Only thing I would add is that appreciate the community bringing it forward. Definitely should always have the opportunity to make comments and ask questions about any type of vote for that matter. The only thing I can see is whether or not we can always strive to consider the language we're using in our memos and make sure that it is clear as possible to the community as to what the vote is about. So that's about all I would add. No?
So motion?
Yeah, I got nothing to add. I think it's all been said, so.
I'll make a motion. Consider adopting resolution number 7639, authorizing various public improvements and the issuance of general obligation bonds and/or temporary notes to finance all or a portion of the costs of certain improvements.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Lawson, a second by Commissioner Littlejohn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 4-0. Okay, that brings us to commission items. There's no regular agenda tonight, and so that brings us to, let folks leave there. Commission items. Anyone have any commission items?
I do not.
Okay. Amber, any commission items? Seeing none?
No, Vice Mayor.
Okay. We have the future agenda. Obviously, we have some things coming up in December. Any other questions about future agenda? Seeing none, that takes us to the city manager's report.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. The two items on there are the usual utility billing report, and we also did a follow-up to the request that we had the other evening to present some information about cost and usage data for reopening of the community building for youth access. So that memo is provided in there, as well as I think there's a follow-up note from Lindsay today just saying if you wanted to go deeper than that, we'd probably need a little bit more time to give you more information and study it.
Okay. Questions? Should probably be something that's brought up, I think, by the new commission at least, when they come in. So we'll get a discussion on that. Okay, any comment, public comment on the city manager's report before we get to open public comment? Okay, anyone online for the city manager's report?
Yes. Stephen Watts.
Hi, thank you. You know, what is sadly missing in our city manager's report for this week, and I suppose it's slightable, is no report on what's going on with respect to the town website. Why are we promulgating bad information to the public? Informing them of things like the city commission consists of 5 officials elected at large every 2 years. 3 of the commissioners are up for election and no term limits exist. The top 2 vote getters win 4-year terms, and the 3rd place finisher wins a 2-year term, allowing for a majority of the commission to be replaced in any given election. Quote unquote. That's our town website with respect to the town commission. And then, you know, just going to the legislative priorities, it stops at 2023. So it seems to me that we need a city manager report to inform us what in the hay is going on. On August 13, 2024, we had a decent report from the city manager's office through his communication team with respect to what was going on with our town website. And we were promised that one would be coming toot sweet. Here we are, 16 months later? At any rate, we need that for a city manager report update, and we also need an update from the city manager with respect to the integration of these spy cameras going on in town, better called fuses, whatever you want to call it. And then we could add to that report what relationship the Lawrence, Kansas police and our town manager has with the federal fusion centers in Topeka and across the United States. And then we can get a city manager report on what our town is going to do when ICE comes to town. Okay, that's enough for the city manager report. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to commission calendar. Any questions about the calendar? I would note that that there is the KU Student Senate holiday get-together on Wednesday, December 3rd. Appreciate the Student Senate inviting us, and I would add that it's not quite on the calendar. Student Body President has asked me to come speak on January 28th to the Student Senate, and looking forward to doing that, kind of give a State of the City address to the Student Senate and the President and his cabinet. So looking forward to that on January 28th. Any other comments on the calendar?